Welcome everyone to the Saturday in Athens GA Podcast. My name is Marshall Barton. I've been running this page, this brand, for 5 years now. We've really grown a lot across all platforms. I think we're at 50,000 followers total across 5 platforms. So I figured, why not start a podcast? What wouldn't be beneficial about reaching more people, hopefully getting some more clips to add to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the above really. Just have more open dialogue about Georgia football, give more detailed, deep analysis. Hopefully it would be some extra good content for you guys, some enjoyable content, and we could just continue to grow the brand and really get excited for the upcoming Georgia football season. Anyway, that's kind of my spiel. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're watching. Today we're going to go over Georgia's, the best reasons why Georgia will win the SEC again in 2025. Many people look on 2024 as sort of a failure just because of several things that happened. Georgia lost 3 games, which it hasn't done since, if my memory recalls or is right here, the 2018 season. Georgia hasn't lost 3 or more games since then. Georgia also lost the first round of the playoff. Georgia also had a lot of close games it shouldn't have had in 2024. That being said, Georgia still won the SEC. Georgia beat Texas twice, beating the number 1 team at their place in October. Georgia had a lot of things to build on from the 2024 season, and kind of what we're going to dive into today is some of the reasons why I do think Georgia has a great shot at winning the SEC and will ultimately win the SEC in 2025, but also kind of digging into the roster a little bit and seeing what key pieces Georgia returns, what new pieces it may add, and why Georgia just overall, top to bottom, has really the best shot in my eyes of winning the whole thing, roster being a huge part of that. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So one of my biggest reasons for my belief in this Georgia team in 2025 is Gunnar Stockton is a leader. And that's something you kind of lost a little bit last year with Carson Beck. I think, and I tell a lot of people this, Carson Beck in 2023 was a fantastic quarterback and really a pretty solid leader. Carson Beck made a lot of throws and a lot of reads that are resemblant of a pro quarterback. Carson Beck had a fantastic year. He also had the weapons, though. Carson Beck had Ladd McConkey. He had Brock Bowers. He had all the talent he needed to make it happen, and ultimately he made it happen. He had a lot of talent last year, but among other things, there were a lot of drops. Carson was not exactly the leader you want out of a QB1, and I hate to go on here and just trash our players. It's not what the goal of this is, but that is the truth about Carson Beck. He was absent a lot of times as the Georgia quarterback, and we've heard this more and more from people very involved, very close to the program. So I really think stepping into a situation where you got a guy like Gunnar Stockton, showed that he's a true leader in those, really the Texas game, but really the whole time he's been at Georgia. Being the backup guy is not easy. I'm sure it's not fun for him to sit behind somebody for 3 years. Heading in his 4th year, this is the first year it's really his team, and I'm sure that's exciting for him to have that. But it's very impressive for him in this age of college football to stick with a team for that long. I think he truly loves Georgia. You can see the fire he plays with. Fire, passion, and energy are some of the things that Kirby honed in on at SEC Media Day. And I believe that of anyone on the team, Gunnar may be the player that exhibits that the most. So, first reason would be Gunnar Stockton. Also, he's a very good football player. People obviously see that he hasn't had as much experience as your typical starting quarterback, but I'm not really worried about that because I've seen what he can do. He's a very accurate player, very accurate. To quote Brooks Austin on this, very accurate thrower of the football, and I'm going to use that a lot because it's very true. But he's also a great athlete. He can run. The dude can run. I think Georgia's going to find a lot of unique ways to utilize him and use him to his strengths. So I'm really excited for what Gunnar Stockton brings to the table in 2025. Very reassuring to have a quarterback who started this little, who's played this little, and you're that confident about because of what you have seen. Now, the next reason would be this is probably the best starting receiver room Georgia's had under Kirby Smart. Probably one of the best receiver rooms Georgia's really had, just period. You bring in guys like Noah Thomas and Zach Branch, who are both bring very unique, elite traits to your team. Noah Thomas, a guy who can go up and get the football, and we always characterize him as that, but he's also an athletic dude. So I'm excited to see him. Obviously, Zach Branch is very commonly talked about among the Georgia fan base of kind of that explosiveness that he brings to the Georgia offense this season. We've seen a lot of his highlights as a returner at Southern Cal, a lot of his receiver highlights too. Don't get me wrong, but part of me is really excited just to see what he can do with open space as a returner. But anyway, I'm very excited about the both of those. Colby Young being back after suspension is very helpful for this Georgia team. Colby Young, losing him week 5, losing Robert Thomas before the season even started. You lost your 2 guys that can go up and catch the football, go and grab the football when it's a 50-50 ball. And he was really becoming a great target and a very reliable target for Carson Beck, especially in that Auburn game, which he got suspended after that game. Anyway, he's back. He's worked out some legal issues. He will be back with the team. Very excited to see what he can do. Dylan Bell gets a bad rap for what happened in 2024, and he really didn't have a bad season in my eyes. It's just they put him somewhere. Not going to say that he's not comfortable at, but they put him in a position at a spot at wide receiver that is not his typical position. This dude is your Swiss Army knife. I don't remember who said that recently, but that was the term they coined Dylan Bell with, and I find it to be very accurate that Dylan Bell is the Swiss Army knife of this Georgia offense. You put him at running back, put him at wide receiver, he can do really anything. And he threw the touchdown against Tennessee in 2023. So Dylan Bell's a guy who can really do anything for you. I'm excited to see what he does for Georgia this year, and especially in a more comfortable spot for him. You've got some other guys who could get in and make a big impact. Sokovie White has showed out a lot. He showed out at the first G-Day of his Georgia career in 2024. And then 2025, we've obviously seen him as well. He caught a touchdown in the 2025 G-Day, I'm pretty sure, as well. But I'd be excited to see if he does get some time, which I'm sure he will. I'd be excited to see how he does. I'd be excited to see London Humphreys back into similarly to Dylan Bell in a more comfortable position for himself. I'd be really excited to see how those guys kind of compete. Really excited to see Taylon Taylor and C.J. Wiley, the 2 freshman wide receivers who Georgia's actually did a pretty good job last year recruiting wide receivers. But those 2 are the main guys we should be looking at in this Georgia receiver corps. Another thing, tight end room. The tight end room is loaded this year for Georgia, as always, but it's really different this year for Georgia. Like, we've got different from the past couple of years. Georgia has an elite tight end room. If you look at Oscar Delp, really has grown every year, in my opinion, as a Georgia player. Last year he had a great year, had a great game versus Tennessee. He'll be the starter heading into this year. Lawson Lucky's an incredible player, and when I kind of talked about him recently, I said he's more comparable to Brock Bowers than Oscar Delp would be, and I find that to be because of his receiving upside. Not saying that Delp doesn't have a lot of receiving upside, but I find Lawson is more of that guy who you expect him to make big explosive plays as a tight end, and Oscar Delp is a great blocker, a great receiving tight end. I do think that Lawson Lucky's a better receiving tight end than he is. I don't think it's an incredible gap. I do think that overall you've got to put a guy like Oscar Delp out there, but you're going to see a lot of Lawson Lucky. You've also got Jaden Riddell, sophomore from last year, Colton Heinrich, sophomore from last year. You got Elias Williams coming in as a freshman, Ethan Barber coming in as a freshman. You got a lot of talent in this Georgia tight end room, and I would be very excited to see Georgia hopefully keep all of that talent even heading into next year. But that's looking very far ahead. Georgia's tight end room in 2025 is a very solid room. Similarly, the defensive equivalent, or maybe defensive greater than that, would be the linebacker room. You see guys like C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Chris Cole, Justin Williams. You've got a bunch of talent there. That's not all you've got there. You've also got Zayden Walker. You've got Anthony Crua. You've got some real, true talent in that linebacker room this year for Georgia. C.J. Allen heading into, really, if you're counting the last couple games he started as a freshman in the absence of Jamon Dumas-Johnson, this is his 3rd year starting. This would be Raylan's 2nd. Chris Cole got a lot of time last year. I'd consider him pretty well experienced heading into his 2nd year. Justin Williams didn't see as much time, but we've heard many great things about Justin Williams. I'm very excited to see him finally get to see him show more of what he's capable of than what we saw last year. We just didn't see him as much, so I'm really excited to see what he is capable of. But yeah, those are your 2, I would say, most stacked positions in the entire team. Very excited about the running backs room. Nate Frazier is my favorite player on the team, personally. I'd say it's Nate and Gunner are right there. I think CJ is a lot of fun to watch. Dalen Everett's really a lot of fun to watch. But these are some very exciting guys to watch in the 2025 season for Georgia. Nate Frazier is my favorite, though. I think two things really. He's just fun to watch. He's just a good player. Obviously, that goes without saying. But also, I love to see the way he when Nate Frazier got to Georgia, even before he got to Georgia, like the end of his senior year in high school, he very much cared about Georgia. He cared about the traditions of Georgia past, such as, and I know it's a small gesture, but it means a lot to people like me, I guess, to Georgia fans who have been watching forever, who love the team. It means a lot to Georgia fans to see a guy who cares enough to go see the celebrations of past players and put them on show in high school all-star games. And his first touchdown at Georgia, he does the jazz hands and the praying hands. I know that's a small gesture to a lot of people, but to real Georgia fans, it means a lot. It's just cool to see a guy who truly cares about the team. That's why I love Nate Frazier. Josh McCray, the transfer from Illinois, will be a big part for Georgia's running game this year. I see a lot of potential scenarios where it's third and short, and Josh McCray's a guy we can get the ball to and punch it forward for a couple yards for a first down or for a touchdown. Cash Jones is obviously a very reliable running back option, very good receiver. His receiving stats were better than his rushing stats last year, and I think that's pretty good that Georgia has that. Rod Robinson will hopefully be healthy this year. He's battled some injuries the past couple years. It was really hindered last year, I feel like, because of that. And he was playing very well at the practices. I went to a fall practice last year where he looked phenomenal. Like, he was probably my favorite back out of anyone there at the time. Then he got hurt, and it just it wasn't exactly the year he wanted, and I know he knows that. But I really am excited to see what he could do this year. You've got Dwight Phillips, who has been doing pretty good in practice. He did really good at the end of last year. He made some plays. You'll probably see him get some more time this year. Chauncey Bowens is still there as a sophomore running back or a redshirt freshman. I'm not really sure. But very promising for Georgia right there. Then we really move more into the lines, the offensive and defensive line. And Georgia's offensive line is not – I'm not worried about it, but I do have my questions, and I know a lot of Dog Nation does have questions about the offensive line. I don't think the talent's lacking from the offensive line. I just think the experience is. And that's not me saying that as a gut feeling. That's a fact. You lost a lot. You lost a lot of experience on that offensive line last year. You lost Jared Wilson, your starting center, who played fairly well. I thought he played well. You lose Tate Ratledge, who's probably one of your best guys, if not your best guy up there. Dylan Fairchild was really one of the most consistent to me last year. I really liked watching Dylan Fairchild. I was kind of surprised to see him go. I was surprised to see Jared Wilson go also. Xavier Truss had to go because Xavier Truss was on the team for 35 years. So you lost quite a bit of experience online, and that wasn't a shot at Xavier Truss. I just like making jokes about Georgia players I think have been there forever. But you lost those guys. You're bringing in some good talent. Ernest Green was hurt for a bit of last year. I think he'll be a very effective player coming back off of his injury. Same thing for Monroe Freeling. He was playing hurt in that Notre Dame game, and he's not happy about that performance. Obviously, I had my critiques. I'm glad they're both coming back fully healthy or healthier than they were. I think they'll be very effective. Heard a lot of good things about Drew Bobo. When he got in the game, he played fairly well. He played well in my eyes. You're going to see new guys like Micah Morris and Daniel Calhoun. It just depends. We don't really know. I love what I've seen out of Micah Morris. I love when he's gotten in the game in some of those jumbo packages. I love to see him in there. But we'll just have to see before we make a truly substantial take, give a truly substantial take on how we feel about the offensive line in 2025. I'm not worried. I would say I'm a little. I don't even want to say concerned. There are just question marks on that Georgia offensive line that any sane person would have. So that's that. I think we just got to wait and see on that. We got to wait and see Georgia play one of those big games at home. Then you go to the defensive line, where I think there's more talent there, and just as much or maybe less experience there. You've got your returning Jordan Hall, who was hurt last year, and really for being a third-year player has not played that much. That's what I would say. That'd be my take on that. But he's been very good when he got in. Xavier McLeod being in the system for the second year should make an impact. Christian Miller is probably the best guy on the interior defensive line, one of the best interior defensive linemen in college football. What excites me, though, is Elam Edozie, the transfer from Army, the edge, the defensive end from Army. who has a lot of twitch, a lot of speed, a very effective, dominant pass rusher, which it was good that Georgia went into the portal and got that this past season. I've heard a lot of good things. Heard he's been one of the best players as far as practice performance and production post-spring because he did come in after the spring window, I'm pretty sure. So very excited to see what he does. Excited to see some of our freshmen down there, Elijah Griffin, Isaiah Gibson. Really promising for the Georgia defensive line, but similar to the offensive line, you don't have as much experience as you have had in years past. You lost Zion Logue, Warren Brinson, and Nazir Stackhouse the last 2 years combined. Go back a little further, you've lost Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Trayvon Walker. You lost a lot of guys over the last 4 years, so now you just got to next man up. You got to go recruit, put the next guys out there, the next best guys, the younger guys out there. And I trust Georgia, I trust Kirby Smart, I trust Trey Scott more than anyone in college football to go out there and do that. But it's very exciting stuff with the defensive line as far as potential. Now, when we look at the secondary, we're going to shift a little bit to the secondary. Very confident about our cornerbacks right now. Dalen Everett, I was very critical of Dalen Everett, and sometimes it was just kind of like hey, I got to find a punching bag, and it was Dalen Everett in the 2023 season. But that dude locked down in 2024. He played a fantastic 2024 season. Very excited that he came back. I think it was good for him and good for Georgia. Very, very many positives for both sides on that. The other side, opposite from him, you're either going to see Daniel Harris or Ellis Robinson. And I know a lot of people speak highly on Ellis Robinson, as they should. Ellis Robinson is, I believe, one of the highest ever ranked recruits just ever in the history of college football. And this is true, but Daniel Harris looked very good through spring, in my opinion. He looked pretty good in the spring game, the G-Day game. Excited to see what he can do. Excited to see really what the both of them can do. I feel very secure about that. I also feel very secure. I feel secure about the cornerback position in general. I feel secure about star with Janelle Aguero. Hopefully he can stay healthy and he'll be poised for a very big year. Excited to see what he can do. I think he's a perfect player, 4-star. Then you go to the safeties, which safety is interesting. Not in a bad way. And I'm excited to see what the safety group can do. KJ Bolden's obviously your guy at safety. Then you bring in Zion Branch from Southern Cal with Zach Branch. Then you've also got Ja'Cory Thomas, who can really play anywhere on the defensive side of the football. So, that's secondary. As far as the secondary goes, Ja'Cory Thomas can play pretty much anywhere. So it's exciting the potential you have. You just got to get together, find your chemistry, and see what works, see what doesn't, make adjustments. This is coach talk, obviously, pretty common talk, but that's where we're at right now. Like, Georgia has a lot of potential. Georgia just has to believe it and go out and do it. Two things I do want to talk about with regards to this whole thing about why Georgia will win the SEC and also probably make a deep playoff run. Mike Bobo, I have been a big critic of Mike Bobo during his time at Georgia. Really, I didn't really have a huge critique of him up until the 2023 SEC. This is talking about his second stint. Didn't really have a big critique of him until the 2023 SEC championship against Alabama. I felt that he played a very shy game offensively. He was playing more so not to lose than to win. That's to quote somebody else. I'm not sure who. Can't remember who it was. But it's true. It's true. He played that game not to win, but to not lose the game. And that might sound confusing, but it makes sense. And that's why Georgia lost that game. Now you look at last year, and he called a pretty horrible game against Kentucky. I didn't even think he called a horrible game against Alabama. There were just several things that went bad against Alabama, very poorly against Alabama last year for Georgia. From Alabama up until, I don't know, I would say Texas or Florida, because a lot of Texas was Carson Beck's fault. I'll put that on the quarterback there. But Bobo has had his ups and downs as Georgia's offensive coordinator. I see what he has the potential to do because he's had some great offenses, some great statistical outputs and production. His first year, or his first stint as the Georgia offensive coordinator, also saw what he could do with guys like Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. And I know people are going to hear that and say anyone can do that with Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers. And you're probably not wrong to say that, but my point in this being he has a lot of talent this year and a lot of potential to make it happen. I made a post about this pretty recently. This is a do-or-die year for Mike Bobo as the Georgia offensive coordinator. I don't think that's unfair to say. I think it's fair to say because it's a good mix of half of the fan base who thinks he's immortal and is the best offensive coordinator ever, and the other half that really hates Mike Bobo, which I think a lot of that's unwarranted. I think a lot of the defense of him is unwarranted. It brings me to the point, let's not be Disney dogs, let's not be doomsday dogs. Like, you just got to approach it factually, but also as positively as possible, you know? So that's my take on Bobo. Definitely a make or break year for him. But overall, I think this is a fantastic Georgia team, fantastic Georgia schedule. Really, the schedule lines up very well for Georgia. Georgia's got 3 true road games, none of which I'm very worried about at all. That being for several reasons for each of them. I'm just not worried. I don't think Georgia drops any of those road games. Georgia has 2 neutral site games in Jacksonville against Florida and in Atlanta against Georgia Tech, neither of which I'm, again, extremely worried about. Those will definitely be tougher games than the other 3 road games, in my opinion. But I'm not as worried about those as I would be Alabama or Texas. I don't think Ole Miss is going to be a tough game, given that Ole Miss lost a good bit of talent last year. Not saying they're bad. Austin Simmons can play football. I believe that's the name of their quarterback this year. But in Athens, it's going to be too much for Ole Miss. I'm worried about Alabama, really because it's Alabama and Georgia has had a bad history against Alabama. I'm not even worried about Texas's entire roster. Obviously, they've got a good roster and they're paying players millions to go play for them, so they're going to get good players. That's just the truth of that. But honestly, I don't think their roster is as skilled or any more skilled than it was last year. I would say it's less skilled overall. Arch Manning has barely played any football. Arch Manning hasn't started a single meaning game for Texas. But what I will say is he's a mobile quarterback, and Georgia has historically struggled with mobile quarterbacks. So that's something to watch for. That would be my concern with Texas. Overall, I don't think Georgia drops any of these games. Georgia has, again, a very favorable season, a very favorable schedule in my opinion, although it's tough in some ways. Overall, very favorable. I don't think we have as much to be worried about as people are saying. I don't think Georgia's going to be out of the college football playoff like some analysts or experts are saying. I'm not really worried about it. I think this is just as good a Georgia team as we've seen outside of 21 and 22. Georgia has more blue chip recruits in 2025 than they did any of the last 4 years. So that's something to definitely be excited about. So I do think Georgia runs the table, wins the SEC, definitely makes a deep playoff run. I'm biased. Obviously, I'm biased, but I'm also giving you this through a very factual point of view. Georgia has the best shot of anyone in the SEC to win the SEC and to win the national championship. So that's that. I really, truly believe that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple Q&A questions I got on my story a couple days ago. I asked you guys to send me some questions you may have for anything Georgia football related, specifically for this podcast. We've got 4 that I like. The first one being one of my biggest supporters, Dogs versus Taters memes. And the question was, if you could choose between a 1,000-yard wide receiver or a 1,000-yard running back for this Georgia team, which one am I picking? And to be completely honest with you, man, I don't think either of those is that meaningful, because Kirby's had a lot of players that were very capable of going for 1,000 yards and didn't because of several factors. Georgia blowing out opponents and them not getting a full game to pad their stats, technically, or so to speak. Georgia had so much talent that receivers can't get to 1,000 yards. Brock Bowers never got to 1,000 yards. That's not to say Brock Bowers wasn't a 1,000-yard caliber player. This is to say that Brock Bowers had a lot of talent going around him and a lot of games that also they won by a lot and didn't really need to pad the stats. I would say, though, that's me deflecting your question. That's part of me deflecting your question. But if I absolutely had to pick, I would say I'd love to see a running back go over 1,000 yards. This being because Georgia's got so much talent at wide receiver that if somebody does go for 1,000 yards, it concerns me that Gunner's just picking a favorite and throwing it to him all the time, or maybe that the other guys aren't stepping up. I don't expect that of Gunner at all, and I'm not expecting that at all. I'm just saying that's what that would maybe lead me to think. Whereas if we get a 1,000-yard rusher, Nate Frazier. Also, back to running backs, I don't think I mentioned Bo Walker. Bo Walker is, and I apologize if Bo Walker is watching this, Bo Walker's done a great job with Georgia early on in his career. He's a very big running back. He's going to run through you is what I've heard about him. So I'm very excited to watch him. But if we have a 1,000-yard rusher, unless Nate Frazier gets hurt and somebody else just comes in and lights it up, it's going to be Nate Frazier. And I'm very excited to see if Nate Frazier does go for 1,000 yards, that means that our offensive line is doing a good job and at least being good enough. That's what I keep telling people. Georgia's offensive line needs to be good enough this year. So that'd be my take on that. I do think that I don't think either one will happen. If one happens, I hope it's running backs because I think that says more about our running game than a 1,000-yard receiver would say about our passing game. Will Georgia go undefeated this year? This is from Aaron the Cowboy. If you watch the video this far, you can tell I think, yes, Georgia will go undefeated for the several reasons I just gave. That's really all there is to that answer to that question. I'm not trying to blow that off, but I did just kind of spend a whole 25 minutes answering it. But, I mean, it's a good question. It's a good topic of discussion. Caldy 06, are we ever going to use the blackout uniforms or those white helmets? Don't count on it. I don't know. I am honestly kind of happy about that because it shows us that Kirby cares more about winning games than uniforms. I mean, it's not to say that I don't love those uniforms. I do. I love those black jerseys. I love that white helmet. I love the white uniform they've been wearing on recruiting visits. It's just that there's bigger fish to fry, you know. I'm sure that's what Kirby would say. I totally agree with it. But that's really that. And then this is a really good, really interesting one from Hale Hagen _2006. What's the over-under on Puglisi seeing some time this year? And I will say this. I've heard these past couple days that the gap between Gunner and Puglisi has either grown or that it's a lot bigger of a gap than it was or was assumed to be between the two. We've known for a while, or pretty much assumed for a while, that it would be Gunner Stockton, but it's become more and more clear, I guess, this offseason. But I do think there will be some games where Puglisi will get in and see some time, maybe some garbage time. I don't expect there to be a game where Gunner's doing bad and he gets pulled unless he's just playing horribly, because typically Kirby does not pull his quarterbacks. It's not a shot at Kirby. That's just the truth over his time at Georgia. So I'll say that. But I'll also say this for, again, another quarterback who I haven't seen a lot of. I've seen very little of him. We've seen very little of Gunner, but we've really seen very little of Puglisi. I'd be very confident in Puglisi's ability based off the talent and the playmaking ability that I have seen from Puglisi. I'd be very, very confident in him if Gunner did go down or started to underperform and then he needed to go in. So, I mean, really, I'm confident in the quarterback situation. I'm confident in all the question marks Georgia has. Georgia has to go out there and prove it to themselves and to us that they can do it. Georgia's got something that a lot of other past Georgia teams haven't had a lot of. Of course, every Georgia team has had to deal with people picking against them and doubting on them, especially these last couple of years. But nothing like this offseason. So many people, so many experts have been saying how bad Gunner Stockton is, how unreliable he is, how bad of a culture this Georgia team is right now, how bad of a culture it has, how bad it has been. Georgia's not the same they were in 2021 and 2022. And I can tell you one thing, Georgia hears all that. Kirby Smart is telling this team all that, and it's a beautiful thing because Georgia just has to go out there and prove everyone wrong. Georgia's not being hoisted as this national champion consensus pick by anyone other than me, really. But Georgia has everything going for them in that department. Kirby Smart is loving hearing what the media is saying right now. So if you are media personnel watching this, please continue publicly doubting the Georgia Bulldogs. Kirby Smart loves it, and the team loves it. So that's really all I have to say about that. And I really encourage you to keep doing that. Thank you all for watching this video. This has been a great recording. I'm glad that I could finally do something like this and make hopefully a difference in your Georgia football understanding, Georgia football content. I'll be trying to get one of these out once every single week. Once the season starts, I'm looking at posting them on Wednesdays, and I'll take little clips from each one and post them across pretty much all platforms outside of Threads and X. But yeah, I'm excited y'all are here. I'm excited y'all watched. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to all those accounts down in the bottom left corner. Follow them. Go like stuff. There's also my merch there. You can see the merch right here. I held up the wrong part. The merch. We've got polos. We've got some other shirts. We're working on some designs. Going to probably post some in August and kind of get them closer to the season. See if people have any ideas. I got some good ideas from people a couple days ago I may be working on soon. But yeah, just consider all that stuff. Check all that stuff out. We'll be back soon. Thank you for watching, and go Dogs.